oil breakout above 90. What impacts crypto? Is it oil or something else? Semiconductors, NASDAQ, Google, Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon all reporting this week. What will happen when tech companies go, we may have spent a little bit too much money? What happens if hedge funds who are short oil, long semiconductors, right? If they get stopped out on both sides? And what happens if everyone who's predicting like an apocalypse for both the hedge funds and tech stocks winds up being wrong? Hence the title on the stream, are they all wrong? Is the oil hysteria the right thing to do? Is it? Is the tech hysteria the right thing to do? And if it isn't, how does that affect Bitcoin? Clarity Act news right off the tape this morning will look at those hysterics along with the charts from Alpha Intelligence. We have Alpha Intelligence for, as you would suspect. We have tactical charts for oil, NASDAQ, SOX, that's the Semiconductor Index, Bitcoin futures, Ethereum, and Hedera, which is smoking on the upside, right? All coins are dead, though. So check out Alpha Intelligence in the links down below. The Eagle King has got a QR code. We are using the indicators on that. We are using Alpha, Structure Suite, and Order Block Suite. What does that mean? Well, we'll tell you. Don't go anywhere. This is the Market Update. I am your host, Bill Noble. If you need a roadmap in crypto, subscribe to this channel. Turn on alerts so you know when we're going live. And if you like the content, hit the like button. You can help us so we can help you. Last night, we're coming off a on fire YouTube member area podcast and then associated Patreon content about what happens if the AI trade moves to crypto. In other words, if everyone's like, well, it's all about semiconductors and NASDAQ. Well, actually, it isn't. And we talked about this last night. And we have associated work about AI, NASDAQ, and oil in Patreon with the 6th Street Crypto podcast coming back. So if you're in the free group, join us along with a big report in platinum. Now you're like, well, Bill, you've said this before about AI and crypto. And then I look on CoinDesk this morning and I see, forget NVIDIA. The next big AI trade could be crypto and blockchain. What do you know? Members out there will go, oh, gee, that sounds familiar. That's been Toby Ward and her small cap altcoins for a year. And by the way, she got the DEXs right. And then she got the last 2 sectors that just popped off. You're like, there's 2 sectors that just popped off? Yeah, you should go check it out. But of course, because, we're not huge yet, the rest of the world will have to get it because Franklin Templeton has to tell everybody, an old school money manager who likes crypto. They're arguing that autonomous AI agents start spending money on their own. And blockchain networks will power the next big AI trade. You don't say. So what are they wrong about? They're wrong that it's all about NVIDIA and NASDAQ. Wrong. And if there's an NVIDIA or NASDAQ crash, does that bring in the Fed? One angle. The other angle is if oil goes up and you have a massive slowdown in economic growth. Yeah, oil up shocks inflation, maybe. Or maybe an oil shock eventually brings in the Fed, a rescue package. I know you're like, that's crazy. And it is crazy because oil's at resistance and so is crypto. We're going to go over all that. And as I would say, someone's wrong, right? Either oil's going to explode and go to 100, or crypto's going to explode because oil doesn't. And then, of course, you have these earnings reports coming out tonight. In 10 words or less, I will leak this from the YouTube member live stream. Semiconductor stocks are done on the upside. You'll have a couple that do good. You might have a bounce, but that trade's over. So they got to go find a new trade in AI. And that's possibly in crypto. Is it today? I don't know. We'll look at the charts. We'll go over Bitcoin and oil, and we'll go over Bitcoin and semi. So you have a great primer headed into the earnings of all these big tech companies. All right, I'm going to do something shocking because I forgot last time. I'm going to welcome who's here. We have DID. Welcome. Welcome to the show. Rave Song Records, Bull Runner in the house. DNT Saver, Zapedas, a very loyal member. Thank you. Okay. The marker has been holding. When is the bear over? I think the bear is already over in Bitcoin, but we have to deal with the looming threat of NASDAQ. Thomas Chai, Dark, a Spartan Colonel. Gary DeHolder from Hawaii. They must watch the show. Franklin Templeton must watch the show. Oh my God, we've been saying that for a year. It's practically, I'd say it's a broken record, but there's nothing broken about it because these little small coins, right? They have like, they do like 5x moves. And, there's new sectors that just popped off. There's a buy the dip program that we have. Check it out. Okay. Now let's get to oil. Oil is breaking out massively. Everyone is now getting, it's day 1, it's day 2, it's day 3, it's day 11. Okay. It's forever. It's forever, right? In other words, we are probably going to do this until NASDAQ goes down or we run out of cruise missiles. It's not going to stop. And oil goes up like 2 or 3% every day as everybody goes, well, is all this oil that is still being produced ever going to get out of the Middle East? Ever? Like, can the United States produce enough oil to sustain itself? So the production capacity is not being destroyed, but this just appears never ending in terms of us like slowly attacking them from whatever bases we can attack them from. And it goes on and on. So, this creates a kind of different chain reaction for crypto, right? Oil goes up, inflation expectations go up. That means the Fed is less willing to cut rates or just can't. And then, if the Fed is not willing to cut rates, the valuations on these wild technology stocks, or I should say the wild valuation on these technology stocks and the wild valuations in S&P, they compress, which is a nice way of saying people get real about what equities are worth. People get real about hyperscaler spending and how long they can keep that up and whether or not there's a return on that investment. There's likely to be more winners in crypto than there is in legacy. Whoops. That was from the YouTube member live stream. You should check out the coins. Now, if technology valuations compress, leverage investors reduce exposure. So big hedge funds, macro funds, even tech funds, they're going to sell the only thing that trades 24 hours, which is Bitcoin. So oil doesn't attack Bitcoin. oil attacks the liquidity environment that Bitcoin and crypto need to thrive. Now, Bitcoin is also not digital gold, right? It's designed as an escape from the financial system, but during a market panic, like I said, it's the first thing to get sold. Digital gold or safe haven may emerge later as governments and central banks have to respond to any potential crisis. Or central banks can come in and cut rates because there is no crisis. So follow me here. Even though I know it's the bear market, I know it's at resistance, I know it can go down, but if oil goes way up and that stops growth after Bitcoin pukes, is it not a buy when you slow global growth down massively? Or if there is no problem, doesn't that eventually bring in the Fed? Or doesn't it eventually allow the Clarity Act, Hedera, Solana, Ethereum, stablecoins, those narratives to at least have a chance? Because guess what, people? There are small caps popping off in the Bitcoin ecosystem. You're like, there's a Bitcoin ecosystem? Yes, bro, there's a Bitcoin ecosystem. There are coins popping off in those areas, along with the stuff that we caught in trading like Backpack and DEXE. So they're rotating out of those into some new stuff. So yeah, some stuff is happening. And if there is no crisis, if everybody's like, oh, get out, and it doesn't go down, that sets up a very interesting scenario, doesn't it? Right? In other words, if tech and semis just sort of range trade or consolidate, that leaves an opening. It leaves an opening for August. We'll see. Now back to semis. So in semiconductor stocks, it's over. It's done, right? They have had their party and they are finished. Out. No mas. Kospi is ridiculous in South Korea. Hyperscaler spending will be there, but chips are not the AI trade anymore. You may still have intense demand for chips. Those earnings may hold up. Their future forecasts may not. They may not. And if that's the case, those stocks are going to get monkey hammered. Now, if they do, there's a couple ways to look at it. You know, the relationship between Bitcoin and speculative tech stocks like chips has become tighter, right? Semiconductors are almost in bear market territory after going down 20%, right? And sort of, you know, they've gotten the attention and said, well, everyone's chasing semis. Bitcoin is dead. Now, that doesn't mean people who hold Bitcoin and say NVIDIA are the same people, right? It means, you know, the marginal momentum trader, the leveraged retail investor, the risky hedge funds, the macro funds, the algo funds are the ones that chase semis. And if they don't chase semis anymore, what are they going to chase? Well, not crypto if it doesn't move, obviously, but that money is coming out of semis, and I don't think it's going back. I don't know if NASDAQ is going to fall out of bed. It should, because of this giant diamond formation that, you know, I've been like screaming about for multiple days. But as is usually the case with NASDAQ, right? It just won't go down. It just won't, right? This is the diamond formation, and NASDAQ, this is the bottom line of the diamond formation. This is a 1-hour chart of NASDAQ futures with Alpha Intelligence, and they couldn't control themselves. They wanted to buy this morning. All these buy orders down here when oil didn't blow through 90. At least we're talking about Brent crude oil. And there's no resistance until you get up here. Now, semiconductors are a different story. You'll have to stay tuned for those charts, but they're not going anywhere. That stuff's not going anywhere. You can have volatility off the earnings, but I don't think that stuff's going to go where people think it's going to go, right? Everyone's like, oh, it's going up forever. Okay, so, if you hear bullish phrases in these earnings reports, like, demand is capacity constrained, right? AI monetization is accelerating. Obviously, that's bullish for tech stocks and probably can hold Bitcoin together. However, if you hear optimization, utilization, capital discipline, right? Improving returns on existing infrastructure, customer digestion, balancing capacity with demand. These phrases will seem responsible, and what is good for the hyperscaler, right? They're going to buy less stuff, is not going to be good for semis. Not at all. And this AI trade it could move very quickly out of tech, out of stocks, and into crypto. Actually, that would be the glorious response. Right now, the Fed is trapped between oil rising and semiconductors, which are a growth proxy, falling. So the Fed is like, which is it? And you're like, which is it? Okay, well, I mean, when we do that, if we, eventually off these earnings, the market will decide. That's the great news about pivot points, right? You establish what the pivot points are, and then you wait for the market to make a decision, and then, you can act. So let's talk about scenarios. Let's talk about maybe fading the consensus. So right now, it looks like there's a 25% chance of a giant geopolitical shock. There's a 25% chance that this war gets totally out of hand. The only way it's good for Bitcoin is if it's like 15%. Is if you have it at 25%, like, a 1 in 4 chance of this becoming like World War III, tech stocks and crypto are not going up. It's too speculative, not going to happen in that kind of environment. Now, for a stagflation shock, which would be an oil shock, there's a 35% chance of an oil shock, according to our models. However, if you want to, fade that, it's only a 20% chance. Which is it? Which is it that there's some kind of shock with oil? In other words, it doesn't have to be World War III to have an oil shock, because there's just not enough oil supply. So, there's a strong chance of a negative outcome here. And a lot of people are probably talking about that, because this morning it was like, oh my God, oil's above 90. Yet crypto was actually able to go back up and is so far trying to defy some sell signals, which we will show you. Now, what is the difference between someone who is bullish and someone who is bearish crypto? Someone who is bearish crypto thinks that there's only a 10% chance that the Fed will step in if oil gets ugly and stunts growth, or tech stocks and semis completely crash. Obviously, Bitcoin will go down with any kind of crash. But if there's any type of shock, some people think there's a 10% chance. But if you wanted to be a contrarian, you would say there's a 30% chance of seeing the Fed. And let's face it, if the bottom of crypto is in October, the only way you get a bottom and an eventual reversal is if the Fed has to come in and either cut rates because it can, or cut rates because it has to. So this oil semiconductor thing is very relevant. Is there a growth shock? Is there a shock to everyone's margin account that slows down growth and inflation? Period. And we're going to find out. You're going to find out really soon, because the oil supply situation scares me. The oil is out there, but can they get it to market? I don't see how that happens when we hit them day after day after day after day. And it looks like that's going to go on forever, because I don't know if we're getting anywhere. I don't know if it's one of these things where it's going to take 6 months to find out who's actually winning. Really. So, we're just sitting and waiting, looking at pivot points. Now, if you take this one step further, okay, the cleanest outcome for Bitcoin is oil below 90. If oil stays below 90, it's okay. If oil stays below 90 and AI spending is fine, NASDAQ's not going down. NASDAQ's probably going to try to go up, because everybody who tries to protect themselves and hedge around earnings is going to get stopped out. And you can already see they do nothing but squeeze the shorts. It goes down. The plunge protection team brings it back. That's it. Okay. Now, any type of crash, as I said, as a bottom line, eventually saves Bitcoin, but not in the beginning. Not in the beginning. Okay, let's go to the charts and see what we got. Okay, so here's oil. This is Brent. Brent meaning delivery in London. All right. Now, as I've been talking about on the stream and in Patreon, you have this big resistance shelf. You have the point where everyone sold off the MOU. You have alpha intelligence sell signals. They defied the sell signals. Now oil comes off back to where the buyers came in at 89, and here we sit. So if we blow through 94, then all of these sellers and all of these shorts will get smoked. And we may just sit here at 90 and scare everyone. Scare everyone. It's scaring me. Hedge funds are trying to short this and be long semis. I mean, to me, that's crazy, but sometimes the crazy trades are right. And the only way that trade winds up being right is if oil stays below 90, there's no shock on the upside, and everybody winds up getting stopped out if they're bearish on tech. It's bold, right? So there's a 76% chance, breaking news from the Eagle King, that the Senate will actually vote on the Clarity Act. So with that news out, let's switch over to crypto. Now, this is the Bitcoin futures chart. I'm using that because Alpha Intelligence uses volume to create these simple support, what look like simple support and resistance areas. So a little basic TA. Bitcoin was able to come down and test a prior high at 65K right here for TikTokers. Did I get it on there? Yeah, for TikTokers right there. Bitcoin defied the sell signals and ran the stops here up to 67. Then naturally, of course, after they ran the stops, they dropped it. And Bitcoin is coming back to where they all sold it this morning. And you know what, folks? The net of the net is this does not look terrible. This does not look terrible. I mean, there have been points where crypto has looked absolutely horrible, right? But the thing is, if you look, if I can get it to show up, if you look at this, if you look at the big picture, and I can get it to come up, the next big like order block zone in Bitcoin futures is 71. Okay. So you already know that if oil goes to 100, Bitcoin's not going to 71, right? But, this is a fluid situation, and you don't know what these hyperscaler earnings are going to be. You probably know they're going to say they're going to slow down spending so they can borrow more money. And then the question becomes, can the AI trade move from chips to crypto after the initial volatility? And you know what? The answer to me is obviously yes. And here's why. Here's why. So a lot of people, maybe including me, were like, they might sell the fact on the Clarity Act. They might sell the fact. I mean, Treasury Secretary Bessent this morning is out saying, the Clarity Act is going to happen. They're on the 1 yard line, to use an American football analogy. So we had some sell signals in Solana at a big order block zone. You could see the sell signal in Solana at 79 clearly worked because it went straight down. Yet all these other sell signals have not worked. They've not worked. And, this pivot zone is huge. It's like the pivot zone in oil. It's funny, right? Solana matches up with oil. It's weird, right? So, yeah, Solana's knocking on the door. And as you can see, it's wicking back, right? Crypto traders know where the resistance is with or without alpha intelligence. ETH is very similar, right? ETH has put in a bunch of sell signals yesterday and today because ETH wicks up and comes back off again. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you is crypto is not moving lower, but it looks like everyone is selling against resistance. And if oil's at resistance and ETH is at resistance, if oil moves down, crypto will break out. It's as simple as that. I gave you the levels. And if oil blows through resistance, crypto will obviously come off. So there is a technical analysis catalyst for crypto, oil, and semis. Because if you look at semis, this is a 5-wave structure on the way up. And it looks like this bounce is basically over. There's no sell signals. This is SOX. But there's a big order block zone here, and I don't see the rationale to buy this at all. At all. I mean, if you consider how much this has gone up, right? I mean, yes, it has retraced 38%, but this is like a 300% rally. It's a 50% rally since April, but the overall rally is much bigger than that. I don't see where the alpha is here. I don't see it. Hyperscalers have to chill out because of the hyperscaler bond market is literally getting nuked. So they have to calm down on their spending or they're not going to be able to borrow any more money. And there's a reason why Franklin Templeton, which is a big Wall Street player, is saying, hey, this is over. So instead, this is classic Wall Street. Like Wall Street never goes, oh, it's going down. It's bearish. Sell semis. Get out. They don't say that. They say, well, things may be volatile and there may be a rotation over to crypto. That's what they say when they're bearish NASDAQ. And that's perfect because we have our own way of referring to this, and that I can't give that away or I'm going to be in timeout. Okay. There's a way to think about NASDAQ where it's not Armageddon and it's good for crypto. And if you look at Hedera, right? I'm not exactly sure what's going on here, but somebody's after a layer one. And there's a sell signal here and nobody cares. Nobody cares. And I'm looking at this going, hey now, like, where's the next level in this thing? Because they don't care about the sell signal. Hedera right now, has got some distance to get to a big order block zone near 8 cents. So if it's got room to go, and crypto, when Bessent mentions the Clarity Act, gets a bid. Like, it's pretty, you got to have a lot of chutzpah to buy Solana or to get squeezed out of a short when obviously semis are going to fall apart. obviously, excuse me. And oil has a good shot of breaking out. It's very interesting that, they wanted to buy ETH this morning. Yeah, it wicked into resistance. Yeah, it's probably not going to blow through today, but they were after Ethereum and Solana this morning. I think that's very interesting. I think everybody's looking at Bitcoin being down with oil being up and being like, oh, well, this is crypto negative. Now, as we discussed yesterday, getting real for just a second, this oil thing is serious. It is the tightest environment that some analysts have ever seen. And I don't know what we're doing, but whatever we're doing is dangerous. It's very dangerous because, if U.S. gas prices go to like $5, something like that, you can actually bring a good chunk of the consumer economy to a halt. And I'm going to be honest. I know that oil has gone to 120. There was 2022. It was recently very high. Everyone says oil hasn't been a problem in the past, so it won't be a problem in the future. Okay, I get it. I understand that. But I do think oil is a bigger threat than a NASDAQ crash. A NASDAQ crash drags Bitcoin down and then has Bitcoin coming back on a V bottom. An oil move above 90 or 95 to 100, that type of thing. I'm looking at the futures contract. That becomes dangerous. And the odd thing about danger is that frequently it pays to fade it. I can't believe I just said that. Sometimes it pays to fade the danger. Now, I'm not sure how you personally want to handle that, but I also think it's very interesting that gold and silver have traded well. For example, in silver is not moving anymore like it's corrective. It may be hard to see initially, but this is a 5-wave move up in silver right here. This is the Lux Algo Elliott wave tool. That's a 5-wave move up. And then you have a correction. And then there's another 5-wave move up. So silver is not yet at resistance. But the bottom line is silver is moving in a very impulsive way, meaning it's moving in 5-wave structures, which frankly is bullish. It means, silver could possibly be restarting the uptrend. That, and there's 400 ounces of silver in every U.S. cruise missile, which we're currently running out of. So, silver being up only-ish following oil implies a liquidity response to an oil shock. This is not being talked about. Not being talked about at all. That, if you do have an oil shock, and if you have like an end of summer bust in semis and economic growth. Semis are not going up. NASDAQ, they can squeeze out the shorts, but they've done all of it. They've bought the hyperscalers. They've bought Apple. They've done all the trading over there. They can go back and forth, but it seems like it's over. It doesn't have to blow up and go to zero, but that's not the trade anymore. And I think that's going to become obvious after this week. I think everyone already knows it, but everyone's just going to look at it and go, yeah, this is not the trade. This is not it anymore. It's not. I mean, yes, AI is coming epically. I saw a talk last night where some individual listened to the head of research from Anthropic and got so creeped out. Like, these AI characters are trying to sell to the public that AI is very human. It's got a personality. They're trying to make it friendly and, not Skynet. So, we have a lizard trying to tell us that, oh no, it's very human and benevolent. It doesn't want to take your job, blah, 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 blah. Right. We have the resurrection of like a little American style rebellion against data centers. Now, that's going to be fine. They're going to build all that. But I think we should focus on the software that comes out of it, and whether Skynet that these guys create is benevolent or not. This stuff's going to hit the blockchain and start building DeFi, start making meme coins, start making NFTs. Elon this morning, I don't know, because I guess he doesn't like the characters in this new movie, The Odyssey, whatever, wants to take Grok and make a full-length version of The Odyssey with characters that he likes. Okay. Well, I mean, when you're a trillionaire, you can do these eccentric things. But as soon as I saw that, I said, wait a minute. Does this not create potentially a new art market that could be on the blockchain? Has anyone thought of this, about what happens when art comes back and it's machine driven? And this includes meme coins, not to mention things like I said, like Hedera is mooning. Does anybody even know what that's about? It's up 6% right now. It's still moving. So good luck holding it back. Zcash. I forgot Zcash. Zcash is down today, but Zcash is sitting. I'm going to wait for it to come up. I think Zcash is sitting. Wait. I think Zcash is sitting on support. Let's wait for it to come up and see if I'm right. Nope. Support's way down here at 483. So it's still loading. I'm looking for a place to buy. I'm looking for an opportunity for this to get smacked. So sorry I didn't read Zcash correctly, but my point remains. If oil is not a parabolic on the way up and NASDAQ is not a crash on the way down, this opens the door for crypto. It does. Now, crypto is going to get sold first because in the event of a major problem, because all this action in the Middle East occurs overnight. So this is what the 40K crowd is going to say, that there's going to be an event overnight. They're not going to know what to sell, and they're going to jump on Bitcoin because Bitcoin operates 24/7. It's an interesting idea, but it seems old, doesn't it? A little. In other words, the bearish argument for crypto is attached to NASDAQ, is attached to semis. I mean, if they waste it off these earnings, crypto's going to go lower. But call me crazy, but when you looked at these alpha intelligence charts of like Solana, Hedera, and Ethereum, doesn't crypto get a gold star for wanting to go up in this environment? Crypto wants to go up. I don't know if it's going to get through resistance. Obviously, Solana and Ethereum keep wicking back because who in their right mind would initiate new longs into these scary earnings report with oil scaring everybody? Nobody knows what's going to happen there. Nobody's going to get, it's like oil is so weird that there's a guy who thinks oil's going to 200 that's actually telling people don't have any position at all because it's too dangerous. It's too dangerous because it could just fly in any direction at any one time. But it is amazing how they're sort of denying the danger or defying the danger in crypto. I like that. I like that crypto has a little bit of a defiant streak. Because at the end of the day, Toby's going to be right And so is Franklin Templeton, because no one is looking at what happens when they simply rotate. Simply rotate. And I don't think the equities crowd or the hedge fund crowd is smart enough to go into altcoins. They're just going to be looking for like the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. The key to this really is, does the Bitcoin ETF start getting money flowing into it? I mean, we can look at the 1 hour chart of IBIT. And just like Bitcoin, there doesn't seem to be anybody home until, say, until it can go up another $1 and it can take out this resistance. And this is a 5-wave structure up. So like silver, Bitcoin is now moving in an impulsive fashion, meaning it's moving more like a trend wants to start than this just corrective malaise that's terrible. It gaps up, it fills the gap, and it has a bounce to it. So I'm painting a picture that the world is not that bad for crypto. Okay. So Smash Satoshi says, current ETF holders are here for the relief rally. That tops out soon and they will be leaving. So that is another point, that crypto has been on a little mini correction to the upside. And then this gigantic mega bear market resumes when oil explodes and semis collapse. And that makes for a super short show. Hi, oil's going to explode to 100 and semis are going to collapse. Both things are possible. Both things are possible. But what people have not talked about is that when that runs its course, that more than likely brings in the Fed. Because if you have a disaster in NASDAQ and a spike in oil, all these people who have been levered long U.S. tech stocks, they're the ones paying $15 a pound for steak. They're the ones who are doing that. And if those people all of a sudden lose a lot of money, inflation is done outside of whatever is impacted by crude oil. Actually, let me rephrase that. The consumer is done relative to what they are doing now. I mean, there is no job growth. There's a whole section of the economy that's just not participating. The people who are participating and driving the economy are people with NVIDIA money. It's either the companies, right? These big companies who are just like, pouring all this money into construction, and the people who benefit from all that because they own equities or housing or whatever. You put the brakes on those people, you have almost a dramatic economic slowdown, which is really kind of funny because there is an E word in November. Like, this is the mystery that I don't think anyone is talking about. Like, why are they risking 100 plus oil now? Like, why are they doing that? I mean, I'm guessing we're doing what we're doing so someone else doesn't do it and create an even bigger problem. Like, all right, there's going to be a problem. We'll do it so we can manage it. Yeah, the law of unintended consequences comes to mind. The unintended consequences are that gets out of hand, oil explode, semis collapse, and you have a huge mess. Huge. And again, oil and semis together is not even being talked about. Like, I'm talking about it. I'm talking about what happens if you go with it. That was yesterday's stream. Now I'm kind of talking about what happens if you fade it. If you say, all right, well, it's super scary. Is that actually going to happen? And I think this is going to continue because, as sad as this is, normally they want to hide flag draped coffins from the public in times of conflict. Now they're making videos of it and they're showing the president there in person. So, as they say in the military, all gave some gave all. I'm seeing the pictures of our fallen service people, particularly the women, everywhere now. They're leveraging this to keep this going. This is the scary part for oil, that we're going to push this all the way to the edge and possibly beyond. We're going to risk unintended consequences. If they're willing to show you a flag-draped box, they're going to push it. And as I say, every stream, it's never a bad time to remind you that sovereigns do not have your interest at heart. That when you go to the gas pump, you think about what Bitcoin is supposed to be for. And you think about stablecoins or an alternative financial system run by humans and machines taking off. That can't be controlled by sovereigns. Sovereigns can use the stablecoins to borrow more money. That's kind of all they care about. But we do kind of need a new system, don't we? Like, why are we talking about bubbles bursting that only benefit a certain sect of society? Let me say that again. We're talking about a bubble bursting, which has allowed a certain segment of society to just party wildly, while the common man and the crypto holder who believes in freedom by default, by even participating in this ecosystem, whether they're doing cash cat or otherwise, they're trying to free themselves. Yeah, okay, some of it's stupid, but a lot of people, especially the ones who watch this stream, know that they're looking for a measure of freedom. Everybody in Patreon, everyone listening to Toby, everybody who's still here believes in a measure of freedom. Freedom from what? People who show you flag drape the boxes to attempt to get you to like something that no one has even explained to us. Doesn't matter whether you like it or you don't like it, or you like the guy in charge or don't like the guy in charge. I'm not criticizing anybody. I'm criticizing sovereigns in general. And you know what? There's a part of me that hopes, obviously, that Bitcoin and crypto hold up better than anyone thinks, particularly if oil smokes higher. If semiconductors crash, Bitcoin does not survive that. But if oil explodes and Bitcoin holds, the rebellion against the sovereigns is on. And I want to end it there on a positive note. Oil at 100 is if things get out of control. Bitcoin holding or Bitcoin going to 70 is a function of a liquidity response from the Fed in the future and the decentralized world pushing back, with an epilogue that there's going to be a rotation into something crypto related, and they can pick from the Bitcoin miners. They can pick from the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, and they can go to Galaxy Digital, which never went up because they have crypto exposure, but they've got this data center thing and crypto together. So instead of a hyperscaler, what about Galaxy Digital? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is the market update for today. We will see you tomorrow.